So I'm excited and I want to embrace the theme of courageous conversations this evening. There are a few topics more timely and more necessary than how we as coaches can have courageous conversations and hold space for our clients and employees to do the same. Being bold with our communication, choosing candor, giving feedback, and calling out harm and inequity when we see it, it can feel really awkward and uncomfortable. And while it can be hard to remember that in the moment, learning to be present with the discomfort, as I know we'll explore today, is a part of it. When we have our board meetings, I strive for our board to have courageous conversations. I want us at ICF South Florida to have the courage to speak up when it's uncomfortable, to be open to being challenged, to be genuinely curious about one another, and to know that sometimes we're going to get things wrong. And we'll be stronger together as a chapter when we pursue courageous conversations anyway. In our chapter, while we had a growth boom in the last year, and now we are at 492 members, our membership is still predominantly white women. Representation matters. It is rare to be able to bring together and learn from a panel of exclusively Black leaders. It is an honor as the president of our chapter to use my voice and my influence to help make today happen. It can feel hard, maybe even really scary, to talk about race, gender, identity, and sexual orientation, inclusion, and belonging in our chapter, which happens to be in a state where laws are being passed banning the exploration of these topics in schools and government. So I want to say thank you. Thank you for braving discomfort and being here. Thank you to our moderator, Andre Brown, and to our incredible panelists for holding space for this important conversation. We're ready for this. I am ready for this. So let's go, and passing it on to you, Andre. Thank you.
All right, great. Misha, thank you so much. And to the panel who is here, Cheryl Proctor-Rogers, Dr. D. Yvonne Young, and Lakeisha C. Brooks. I am so excited to have all three of you here, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So let's start with the first question. And so what I'd like to do is to first start with Lakeisha. This question is, do you notice any trends in coaching as it relates to Black coaches compared to other coaches?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here. So for those who don't know, I am the Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and will be called Belonging soon for the International Coaching Federation. So thank you so much for having me. When we look at trends, one of the things that I wanted to do was look at our data. Data is extremely important in knowing where we are so we can know where we're going. For the first time ever, and I'm so proud to say this, ICF has included racial and ethnicity indicators into some of our data. So it's the first time we've actually even seen how we compare, and I say we as in Black Americans and Black Europeans and Black in general, the first time we've ever seen it, ever. So one of the things that we did was look at our member belonging survey to see, well, where do we fare? What are some of the trends that we're seeing? And I could just speak to ICF. One of the things that we saw is we asked about member resource groups. That safe space that Misha talked about, that's where we'll be able to have that so that we can recruit, we can retain, we can develop. And more people of color, Black individuals, said they would be interested in that as well. So that's really good to see as well. We also looked in the data as it compares to others at ICF and said, hey, we want opportunities for development. We also want to look at how do we address oppression and social justice, or even some systematic things as well. So we are seeing that trending a lot here at ICF to want to include that in coaching, because that is a part of what we live every single day. So whether we heard someone earlier say, hey, I brought my kid to the US and the struggles that I face with him having ADHD, I brought him here for a reason, but I see we're still struggling. Those struggles, she didn't mention those, they could be things like systematic things, could be cost, it could be a lot of things. So what we're seeing is that there are individual needs that people of color, Black individuals may need that other races may not need. And we're seeing here in the data with ICF. So I'm so proud to say that even though we're in the infancy of this, we are now gathering some data to see how do we compare and what can we do at ICF to ensure that the needs that our Black coaches are asking for, that we're addressing as well. Thank you for that.
Right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Dr. Yvonne Young, could you provide your answer on that?
Well, I think I want to go a little further than just providing an answer, if I may. I really think that there's an opportunity here that coaching has, like what was said earlier, it has been the domicile, just like in psychology. And I'm not trying to offend anyone, so please don't take this wrong. But it's been the domicile of white, well-educated women. And the same thing is, I saw that when I was looking for an MCC coach for my mentor coaching. I didn't see anybody that looked like me. And what I found is that it is very critical that we put forth another look or another example that the competence and the capacity that coaching offers is not limited. And if you can and choose to participate and you get credentialed, the ICF is the leading global body in terms of setting best practices and standards for coaches. And I just think that this is a wonderful season that if you are going to be a coach, it's probably a good time to explore what that might look like. And forums like this offer such an opportunity, not only to craft what your brand as a coach could actually turn into and represent, but this also presents a way to do it properly and to structure it in such a way that you set up a transformational environment, not only for yourself as a brand, but for the client population that you can serve.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Cheryl.
Well, what comes to mind for me is coaching has become one of the most fastest growing professions. And we don't, as African Americans, we don't want to be left out. And one of the things that Dr. Young mentioned is access. Traditionally, coaching was really for the elite. It was for the C-suite executives. And I recall, I don't want to date myself, but I recall when nobody would dare say they had a coach, because usually there was a behavior issue and coaching was the last resort. It's like, okay, get this person a coach, try to fix them. And if they can't be fixed, they're out. Well, coaching has evolved from that. And it is a management tool, and the coaching relationship and the coaching conversations are a partnership. And so when you think about the traditional roles that African Americans have played in our society, you find us in large numbers in education, in social work, and in other areas that are where we really are uniquely positioned to coach. You think about our cultural, our family dynamics, and how we revere our senior storytellers who usually tell a story and then end with a profound question that we're all left to consider. So when I look at the trends, I think of the opportunities. Right now, ICF is well over 50,000 members, and we're hitting 60 very soon. And so how do we include the African American coach in these opportunities that are expanding within organizations are looking to establish a coaching culture. They are hiring coaches within the organizations. And so again, how do we help those who might have an interest or may not? How do we start to tell the story and create opportunities for those in our community to consider coaching as a profession? And I think there's a lot of different ways to do that. But I would say just at a high level, that's the opportunity.
Right. Excellent. Yeah, great point. Just to your answer, can you provide an example, say one example of a way that we can make that happen?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I always say, please don't be trapped by confirmation bias. You know, only reading material, only attending events, only hiring people that look like you. And, you know, I think of occasions where a coworker might have been showing me their wedding pictures, you know, and I have a crazy sense of humor, but I'll say it. You didn't know one Black person, you know, it's all of these photos. So how do we first look around the room and ensure that there's diversity in our lives? And to reach out and find an opportunity to connect with those that do not look like you, and to start to create those conversations. And, you know, quite frankly, some are a little afraid. They're not sure if they're going to ask the right question or if they're going to offend someone. And so it's up to us as leaders, as African-American leaders, to create an environment where people do feel comfortable asking those really difficult questions. And certainly ICF at the chapter level can certainly provide that. I'm a past chapter president of ICF Chicago. And so, you know, we have an opportunity. Amesha, I would think you would agree. When I first joined the chapter, there were very few people that looked like me in the chapter, but I was not dissuaded. But I also shared with the other members, let's all bring in some people of color. Let's also bring in our young professionals that are considering other careers. And what is the programming that we're providing at the chapter level? I feel like I'm talking too much, but I would just finally say that we have at our disposal the opportunity to create environments where we can start to see those numbers rise and give those allies or potential allies or those who have identified as allies the tools and the language to be able to speak to others and educate others, so that we will start to see more people of color, not only in coaching, but rising to the level of coaching C-suite executives and others.
Great. Thank you very much, Cheryl. Okay. This next question is for Dr. Young. How has your business and client population shifted? I think you're on mute.
Dr. Young.
Yeah, would you like for me to address that from when the practice started or since COVID? Where do you want me to pick that up?
How about just like since your practice started and kind of.
Oh, okay. Well, when my practice started, like most entrepreneurs, I just wanted somebody to come through the door. I I was hoping that someone would see the light on and the door would start swinging and the cash register would start ringing, right? But the truth is, after I started perfecting what I did and how I did it, I realized that it was critical that I identify who is my audience. And my audience happens to be high net worth and ultra high net worth individuals, public figures, licensed professionals such as MD, JD, nurse practitioner, what have you, and also entrepreneurs. When I fine-tuned who I would best serve, and I found that there would be an alignment between who I am personally, what my core values are rooted in and based on, then that easily defined who my market and who my client was. And then to solidify that, my development process began to align itself with that audience. You know, I'll say this and be quiet because I don't want to take time from the other panelists, but the one thing that I would say is a lot of people ask me, they say, well, Dr. Young, how did you get your practice to where it's $1 million brand? Or how did you get to where you're making, a mid 6, high 6, low 7 figures every year? And my answer to that is expertise, expertise, expertise. You have to continue to perfect what it is that you offer to a client. And with my population, these people easily can, I'm talking to a guy that just got through doing cardiovascular surgery, or a woman who is she's lead counsel on a tort case. I mean, these people are brilliant people within their own rights. So as a coach, I had to make sure that my bar was way up here so that when they came to me, they got something that was a value add and not a waste of their time and their resources, more their time and their resources. And I think that helped to shape not only who my clients were, but what I needed to become myself and evolve to in order to serve such a population.
Lakeisha, if you want to jump in there, because I'd like to share some of my experience in that area.
The question is about his business. So if you want to talk about that, please, Ms. Cheryl, go ahead.
So I like what I heard, Yvonne, and my background, of course, is in public relations, marketing, and business strategy. And so I like to share and evangelize, if I could, the value in what I call the 4 C's. And no, it's not Cheryl. But it is having a career plan, having a business plan, and being clear. Because, occasionally someone will say, well, where do I start? I say, Google business plan template. Because in that, it's going to ask you, what's the mission? What's the vision? Who is your target audience? You're going to answer all of the questions that you need to ask about your own career development. And if you're starting a business, same rules apply. So having a career plan, even as a business owner, I always encourage that. Capabilities. Always focusing on growing your capabilities. I know for sure that it is most critical that I have credibility. So when I chose to really answer the call, I was getting so many requests for executive coaching. I sought out not only training, but I knew the value of the credential. And so I knew that ICF had 3 levels of credential. My sights always on MCC. So always looking to build your capabilities. I think the other C that's really important is your personal cabinet. Who are your board of directors? Who are those that are going to give you great feedback, that are going to make introductions to you? And then finally, community. What community are you a part of, and how are you just a taker, or are you also giving back? And so those 4 C's, when I started my public relations practice, was critical to the success that I had. When I created my plan to transition and really go all in on coaching, I was able to build that business in 4 months to 60 clients. How did I do that? My network, my capabilities. I had credibility instantly. And I was a part of a larger community that referred a lot of clients to me. And so when you start thinking about the trends in business, one of the things that I found early in my practice, before I accepted the position as an internal coach with Ernst & Young, was that many of my vice presidents had not gotten to the C-suite yet, were not being supported. And so they were fortunately looking to coaching to help them fill that gap. And so when you're thinking about starting a business, Dr. Young is spot on. Know what your niche is, but most importantly, know what your network and your communication and your community can do to help you build that business.
Thank you, Cheryl.
So I want to piggyback on that because I want to Miss Cheryl to, and sorry, I say Miss. I'm Southern, Miss Cheryl. I cannot call you Cheryl. I can't do that. So I did want to give her an opportunity to share that, and I've been taking notes on what you all are saying. So forgive me if it looks like I'm looking down. I don't want to share about my business because I'm definitely in the consulting world. I'm a DIB consultant outside of this. So most of my clients are organizations rolling out initiatives for them. But I did want to talk about the 2 of you all and the work that you all do. And what I'm hearing is there was a lot of experience. There was a lot of acumen that you had. There was a lot of network. It was just a lot that you had. But I want us to think about, what about those coaches? Because we said earlier, let's tap into the young professionals, those Gen Zs. They don't have the network. They don't have the same acumen. They don't have the degrees. They don't have all the things that we have. So what can we do to meet them where they are as far as our young Black professionals that are trying to get into this business as well? Because a lot of us, even myself, I was able to build a 6-figure business in 6 months while I was working full time because I had all these things we're talking about. But I also know that there's people that don't have that. So what can we do as leaders to say, hey, here is a program, whether it's a coaching program, a mentoring program, and there'll be some opportunities for some reverse mentoring because they are very jazzy on the social media to show us how to actually continue to build our business. So I just want us to think about what our responsibilities are to tap into that. And another thing is, when we think about our Black coaches outside the US, there's been a lot of talk about African Americans, but what about our coaches outside of the US? Their opportunities, their struggles, their access may be very different than what we see here in the US, because so my husband's Costa Rican, and he says, you have a lot more privileges being in the US than I have in Costa Rica. I never thought about that. We look exactly the same, but I never thought about the access and the opportunities that I have versus what he has or what he is afforded as well. So I want us to think about that as well. So I know I don't want to be a panel, a moderator here, but I would just love to hear from the other 2 seasoned coaches as to, you know, how can we tap into those Gen Zs, those young coaches that are looking to the 2 of you to say, hey, how can I get there? And knowing they can't get there overnight, even though they think they can't get there overnight.
Let me speak to that. By incident, I just got my visa back from the State Department in Kenya, their version thereof. I'm flying to Kenya at the end of the month. I'm going to be doing some speaking and some stuff with the ICF Kenya and doing some stuff with media over there with this U.S. Chamber Kenyan initiative. And one thing that is coming up is that you're very right. The landscape is very different. The structure of the culture and the structure of expectation is very different. Now, I'm going to align that with what you were saying. How do we help these young aspiring coaches to find their place? Well, I'm going to give you some kind of old man, old school advice. The first thing is, I honestly believe that there is possibly alignment with the clients that come your way. What I mean by that is there will be something that is indigenous to you that resonates with your client. I believe water finds its level. I did a TED talk on the law of attraction, and like does attract like even when it's unintentional. One of the ways that I would offer to anyone, wherever you are in the world, to start thinking about what does your life experience consist of? What are the things that you've had to overcome? What are the things that have assailed you, that have created struggle in your life? Because often these things that we thought were problems or problematic were really platforms. And they were opportunities for us to fortify ourselves in such a way, because how can you lead and inspire someone when you haven't been led or inspired? And moreover, how could you do it if you don't have battlefield experience? One thing that I love about the way that Cheryl articulates is that we both deal with the same people. I deal with that Fortune 50, Fortune 100 C-suite guy. She's dealing with the same people. What we do it in a different way. What I love about Cheryl, I call it polish. She has such a refined presentation. Even in this forum, speaking amongst peers, she commands an air of distinction and respect just by the way she shows up. Well, what's really happening at another level is there's a part of each one of us. I know it's a part of me that's resonating with the energy that Cheryl is exuding. There's a part of me that is identifying, like one thing I love, and she did it so eloquently without saying, Dr. Young, you did not answer this right. She cleaned up what I didn't say. And that was, you do need to do a feasibility study. You did need to look at a mission statement and a vision statement. But the way that what I love about this contrast is she and I will get you to the same place, but we have different methods and different presentations and helping you orchestrate your journey. We also, at some point, there's going to be a need where you don't need Dr. Young's avant-garde, unorthodox, those very structured approaches. You need something that is more Cheryl-like, because what she's giving you is conducive to you being able to get to that C-suite and establish your place in it. Now, when you get ready to be a gladiator and start taking heads, come see me, right? So what I'm saying to you is that if you are an aspiring coach, look at your journey. Look at what is indigenous to your nationality, your race, your gender, your beliefs, your core values, and let that be the scaffolding for which you hang your practice on, because you don't want to be what you're not. And what most of us think, and foolishly so, is that, where I'm polished, that's what you're going to love about me. No, the truth is, we want to know, how did you overcome? And what did you do late in the midnight hour that got you to endure to be what you are right now? And I would suggest boldly so that as we look, be it domestically or like what I'm doing, I'm investing a lot of money to fly to Kenya, be there 8 days, meet with the president, his wife, and whoever else God has for me. You're going to have to be willing to understand that nothing is going to come without sacrifice, without investment, and without an unrelenting commitment to stay the course, because someone like Cheryl or like myself, nobody handed us anything. Like Lakeisha, we fought tooth and nail to take every inch of turf and territory that we have.
So what I'm hearing is that when we put together the MRG and we're looking for coaches to help our Gen Z, you're going to be one of the people I can call, right?
And Cheryl.
Cheryl's been voluntold too.
Yeah, you need Cheryl. I mean, you need Dr. Young. We both have MCC behind our name,
Right.
but we paid to get there. And, you know, we stumbled along the way. I know I did. I mean, I did a lot of stuff right, but child, I made some mistakes. And there were some things I could have done effectively. Hence, that's why you need a great mentor coach, and probably more than one, because don't just get the 10 hours of mentor coaching the ICF requires. Get that to check the box and then get more so that you can perfect your gift and your presentation of that gift.
Mhm. Very nice.
I mean, it's not possible for me to agree more. There's a couple of things that came up for me as Dr. Young was speaking, and I think it might help to give us some actions that we might take. And this is some learnings from the Public Relations Society of America when we were all pretty senior, creating a young professional network. Young people like to talk to each other, and they like to create those bonds. And so having a place for them to go and then to invite the senior professionals in, I think is a really great way to create community and start to help them understand what is really important. I believe that at the chapter level or the individual level, having a mentor program. Dr. Young, when I was starting out in PR, I had 2 mentors. One was a seasoned public relations professional, and the other was my sorority sister, who was about 20 years older than me. She taught me how to shop and dress professionally. She taught me how to get past the assistant. She just gave me, so I agree, you know, that goes back to that idea of cabinet, you know, who are your mentors, and helping that next generation, Lakeisha, understand the value of mentoring. And but then, you know, we can tell them, oh, mentoring is really important, but then where do they go to get it? Now, I do a certain amount of pro bono coaching every month. So if someone reaches out to me on LinkedIn, sometimes it's a really young professional, sometimes it's somewhere in the middle. I feel like that's part of my responsibility, to be the mentor or the coach that I wish I had, you know, when I was younger. But how do we communicate that throughout the coaching community? And do we have a mechanism for those who are not like me and Dr. Young? I'm sure he gets a lot of requests, you know, can I have 15 minutes? And my response is always to talk about what's your agenda and what's your desired communication outcome? Because I'm really busy, but I'm going to give you this time. And so how do we create this expectation amongst the professionals that when we look around the room and we don't see enough of us, that we speak up, that we say, Tamisha, what's the plan here? What's the plan to diversify this chapter? And your message around global. You know, I just came back from Dubai, where I was on a reaccreditation team for the public relations and journalism program at the University of Sharjah. understanding the cultural nuances and talking about, I talked about coaching, of course. And Kenya, several years ago, I was invited there to speak to a group of leaders around the how the emerging economies in Kenya were responding to the, to the economics around the world. And so Dr. Young is going to have an opportunity to talk about the value of coaching, creating a coaching culture. And so how many young people do we bring along? And how does the ICF create a path? And it can't be just one path. A person like me, I'm not going to sign up to be a mentor. I just don't have the time. But if there's a one-off, or I can speak to someone for 1 hour, then I'm willing to do that. And I think a lot of the programs that we create in our organizations are one-dimensional. And so I would just encourage you, as we start to think about how we're going to connect and support those young folks that are coming into the profession, to have a lot of different paths and ways that we can support them.
Well, I can tell you, Ms.
Excellent.
Cheryl,
Thank you.
we already have some ideas and things in the pipeline. We just waiting on some things to be approved for the GE board, but we got some things in place.
Now, what board needs to approve that? Let me know now.
I'll talk to you offline.
All right, so this has been great, because like this, we've really been able to kind of get some good information about, what next steps, and just being part of the coaching community, and how especially Black coaches can really set themselves up for success and continue to develop their careers. So what I'd like to do is just to continue with that. And so Lakeisha, my next question is, where do you see the opportunities for Black coaches in today's world?
Yeah, so we talked a lot about them already. Having those mentor coaching opportunities as well. I heard Ms. Cheryl talk about allyship, the importance of there. Also, how do we find strategic and effective partnerships as well? It's very important as well, because we can say, hey, I want to partner with this and that, but like, what is the why? It's always about the why. Why are we doing any of that? So I always go back to Simon Sinek. Why? We have to start with the why as to why we want to do any of this stuff as well. Other opportunities is for us to also, when we go into our opportunities, and I kind of touched on this a little bit, is understanding the intersections and intersectionality of people of color, of Black people. We are not all the same. We do not all come from the same background. Our lenses are very different as well. Like I said, I say Miss Cheryl because I'm from the South, and my mother would kill me if I didn't say that. But that doesn't mean every person is going to say Miss Cheryl to her. So we also have to understand where the person is and who they are as a person first. So when I want to come in and coach a young Black coach to build their business, I have to understand where they're coming from as well. I can't say, well, this worked for Lakeisha, what could work for you? They may have a whole different background, different perspective, different experience. So as I'm coaching them, I have to meet them where they are, but I have to get to know them as a person first and understand and peel back the layers that they have first, so then I can do my work. But also while I'm doing that, I have to go in and try to remove my assumptions, my bias, my stereotypes that I have as well. Because again, I'm thinking a certain way because I come into it with my own filters. But the opportunities we have is meeting people where they are, understanding that the intersections of Black coaches across the world, and how can we, and Ms. Cheryl said this, effectively implement mentoring programs and coaching programs to help that younger generation, because eventually people are going to age out, people are going to retire. And if we don't have that pipeline of talent coming up, you will continue to see that ICS Black population and membership will not grow. So if we are not developing our young talent to be able to have that strong pipeline of leaders to take Dr. Young's position and Ms. Cheryl's position, then what's going to happen? Somebody else is going to step in and take that leadership role as well. So it's our responsibility to make sure that we are investing in that pipeline of young leaders and giving them those opportunities to shine as well and fail if that happens as well.
If I may, I'd like to piggyback on what both of you have said. Oh, and by the way, I want to just celebrate, happy Women's Week month to you ladies. I want to make sure I acknowledge that. Something that I want to say is one of the issues I had with ICF when I first looked at joining in 2005, got in, it was a good old girls club with a couple of good old boys. They're in Tennessee, go figure. Then a few years go by, and I just saw that I didn't see anybody that looked like me. And it reminded me of University of Houston here. They talk about diversity, but I didn't see any diversity at that headquarters. I saw it in membership. I didn't see it in people that were in positions or doing anything. Now, I will say that they have made a considerable effort to kind of do a course correction in that way. But what I've noticed and what a lot of people aren't aware of is Black MCCs globally. Out of the 50,000 members that they are saying, that they have now, out of that 50,000, I think it's a little over 30,000 are credentialed people, ACC, PCC, MCC. The MCC population of African Americans in ICF is less than, 1%? It's probably less than that. African American males, you put a 0 in front of the 1%. Okay. And then I think and the same thing is true if we go globally, then we have to ask, okay, well, I don't even see that. I've spoken to ICF India, I've spoken to ICF chapters around the globe. And what I've seen is scant people, and I'm talking about president of chapter with ACC behind their name, president of chapter. And I question it. So I guess a couple of things that I want to encourage. Join the ICF, because being on the sidelines, we don't change anything. That's number one. Number two, if you join, and while you are able to have time that Cheryl doesn't have, that I don't have, while you are building a name for yourself, do something in that chapter, get active, be a treasurer, be a secretary, be a program chair, because it's needed. And then the other thing that I'm going to say, find ways to utilize your membership in the private sector or in the institutional sector by hiring us to come in and to speak in your organizations, and because people need to be paid for their skills. And then the last thing, this is more for Ms. Brooks, what I would offer is, I know the Institute of Coaching, we just got $500,000 from you guys. And I'm referring to the Institute of Coaching at Harvard. It's an affiliate of the Harvard Medical School. I'm a fellow there. And I was also the chair for racial equity and inclusion. I was the past chair for that. So what I'm saying is, we need to be much more strategic in how we utilize our people inside of ICF and have a value add, not just coming, seeing what we can get, but what can we bring to ICF that will give validity and substance to those of us who are of color or have a passion to support those who are of color, so that ICF not only can do something demonstrative, but do it in a justifiable way where we can say, look, here's proof of concept that this was a good idea to put this person in this position. I think one of my fellow coaches, Peter, is the secretary for ICF internationally now. And those are the things that I think we could do to not only fortify ourselves within the organization, but also fortify the organization itself by embedding ourselves in it in such a way that we cannot be overlooked or ignored.
Absolutely.
Well, as I'm just an advocate for community and being a part of the community and taking responsibility to have pointed elbows sometimes. So I have volunteered for national ICF committees As a result, I was encouraged and was successful in being elected to the Global Enterprise Board. And I immediately signed up to be on the finance committee because I understand to know how an organization works. Finance can be fun. Do not run away from being treasurer. And so last year I was a global treasurer and secretary. And this year I serve as vice chair of the global board. So, you know, our president, Dumi, is from South Africa, a person of color. And our current secretary and treasurer, Sweta, is from India. So when you look at the global board of ICF, there's a lot that has been done to make sure those voices are heard. What we need is for people like Peter James and others to continue to stay engaged. And as I say, reach back and grab someone else and encourage and empower them. You're right, there's about a little over 1,300 members of the ICF that hold the MCC credential. And Yvonne, we've got to do more. And so how do we encourage, I've had some people of color that I've encouraged to go for the credential, just feeling like there's so many barriers of time. How do I get these hours in if I'm not able to? So, you know, how do we creatively help those who are seeking credentials? I mean, I think one of the things that is important is to have those, the title of today's session, how do you have those courageous conversations? How do you look around the room and say, excuse me, I don't like what I'm seeing here. I know I serve on the editorial board for Choice, the magazine for professional coaching. And if you never had, you know, a copy of the magazine, email me separately and I'll make sure you get a free digital copy, or just find me on LinkedIn or Facebook, because I just recently posted the link for the free copy. These are the kinds of opportunities. Let your voices be heard. Write an article for Choice. Write an article for Coach World, ICF's magazine. Get involved. Make an effort, not only to do it for yourself and your, you know, how I always just want to give back. But how do you create a space and an environment where others are modeling your behavior and are finding opportunities within ICF to make a difference? And I'm proof positive that the opportunities are there.
Thank you, Cheryl. Well, in the interest of time, I want to get to this this next question and have you all have an opportunity to respond to that. So the question is, you know, in Florida, we've got a lot going on in terms of the political front and how things are, the dynamics of what's happening with critical race theory and those types of things. So let me read you the question. Regarding the curriculum of race, one of the things that's going on here in Florida is the banning of Black studies, which will probably trickle down into other studies that are identity driven. So what I'd like for you to touch on is, why are policies like these relevant to coaching, and why should it matter to coaches? Dr. Young.
Well, the first thing is that coaches have a unique opportunity to cause and stimulate what I would call a generative moment in a session, meaning to think thoughts you've never thought and to question things that you dare not investigate previously. When we are in the coaching space, we have an opportunity to have leaders tap into their core values in ways that they otherwise wouldn't be challenged, and to do it in a way where self-efficacy is the result. In other words, when you make a decision because you decided to do it based on your core values and because of your own motivations, the adherence is much more significant and far greater than if it were done because someone else was expecting this of you or requesting or even trying to nudge you in that direction. And where I'm going with that is that when we have access to leaders and we're in that C-suite coaching space or just that high profile individual space, the things that are going on in our culture, if someone can have their core value be challenged to say, well, you know, there are two ways to be powerful. One is by shutting your mouth and another is by opening it. What is the benefit? What would it mean for you to be a voice of reason where there's a place where there's a lack of it, you know, and to challenge our clients to go outside of the comfort zone is part of what coaching is about. It's about creating that safe space and that intimacy and holding that client in high regard, sure, but sometimes our clients don't hold in high regard their own core values, their own capacity, or their own vision for a better world. And I think as coaches, we offer a unique opportunity to stimulate that awareness and to marshal it forth, rather than having people look at something, shake their head and go, damn, that sucks. But damn, that sucks doesn't change anything. When you have something that resonates with you at that deep of a level and you do something about it, that can bring change. And we as coaches have the power to influence and stimulate that.
Great, thank you. Cheryl?
Andre, I really don't have anything to add. I think Dr. Young laid it out perfectly. When, you know, I mean, we can go off script and talk about, you know, get into the political realm, but I don't think that's where we want to go today. But certainly by asking those tough questions, not putting forth our own agenda, mind you, but there are spaces in some of these coaching conversations where it is a natural question around how do your values tie into the different cultural nuances that are happening in our society today. And what is your role in helping to shape that and participate in the discourse? And is that something that you'd like to be coached on?
Thank you. Thank you. We're basically at time, but what I'd like to do is to give each of you like a minute or so just to kind of encapsulate what it is that you're taking away from today's discussion. So if you'd like to go, Lakeisha.
Yeah, so I just want to thank you all for all of the nuggets I wrote down here. I have a lot of great information. This is what I do. I take this information back. I had Margie send me some data and we just started to look and compare and see like, hey, what is it that we can be doing? We can't do everything overnight. Trust me, I have literally tried to propose 100,000 things. Some of the things you guys have already said and was told, let's slow it down. So, but continue to give this information to me, because even though I may not be able to implement it right now, it doesn't mean I won't be able to implement it in years to come. So I just want to thank you, Andre. Thank you to your chapter. Thank you to the panelists here as well for giving me additional information to take back with me as I continue to do this work for ICF Global. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Dr. Young?
Real simple. I just want to say to you guys, thank you for having the awareness to do something like this on a consistent basis. It's a needed dialogue. It's a needed discussion. You had an excellent selection of panelists. It is a pleasure connecting with Cheryl. I was born in Cook County Hospital, but I know very little of Chicago. So I definitely would like to get it flying to O'Hare or wherever and come up there and work and speak and do something with the chapter if that is an availability. But the thing that I want to leave us with is this. There are a lot of Cheryls and Yvonnes out there waiting to happen. But the people need to see the evidence that we exist. I challenge, and this is a complimentary challenge to you, Lakeisha, is to find ways to make sure that some of us are well represented in the media and the social streams that ICF has as a captured audience. I understand that globally, we have people that look like us in positions that are highly visible for ICF. Their accessibility, that's a whole nother conversation. And the relevance to our domestic agenda does not match the relevance to the global agenda that ICF has. And I applaud you because I know how frustrating it probably is when you pitch ideas these people really need for the greater good, and then they go and try to table them. What I would want to say is, girl, keep pitching and throw faster. And I don't mean girl in a derogative way. I'm 61 in country. So like you said, ma'am, I got 5 daughters, so I talk like that. But the greater truth is it's an honor to be part of this wonderful work you guys are doing. And I'm always available. And Cheryl, I want to salute you in every way I can. You represent not only yourself in such a wonderful way, but you represent Black women in the coaching space and what I would refer to as the blueprint.
Thank you very much, Dr. Young. Cheryl?
Well, it's thank you for that. It touched my soul, actually. Thank you for that. What I'm taking away from our conversation today, it's so much. I think what is affirmed for me is the power of everyone's role in making these changes happen. And Lakeisha, to you, I would say, use the army of the chapters. There are chapters that are ready to implement some of your ideas. And it could serve as an incubator or, as Dr. Young say, proof of concept. So know that there are many of us here in this community supporting you, and needing to have those courageous conversations at different levels. And so I really appreciate being invited to be on this panel. I met Lakeisha on paper when, they said, this is the person. It's so nice to meet you. Dr. Young, oh my gosh, we're gonna stay close. I'm just so inspired. And I'm not saying that to impress you. I'm saying that just to impress upon you the importance of the work that you're doing, and to know that I heard that and I felt the power of it. And I'm hoping that you and I will have an opportunity to connect. And Andre, you were telling me a little bit about Racial Just Us. These are the kinds of moments in time where you go, oh, okay, there's some stuff out here, there's stuff happening. And so thank you for having the opportunity to be a part of this evening's panel.
Thank you. And thank you all. And also thank you for those who came to participate. We really appreciate it. I'm just, again, just very excited. You know, like the way I look at this is a start. We're just continuing to grow, and we're going to continue to gain momentum. And, you know, I've known, or at least have been working with Lakeisha for the last few months since I came on as the VP of DEIB for the South Florida chapter. But I welcome, and I am excited to connect with all of you so that we can continue this work. I mean, it's, you know, like coaching it's a beautiful thing, but, you know, we as coaches understand that we have to continue to grow and continue to provide opportunities for everyone who coaches. So I just want to, again, thank all of you, you panelists, for being here, and we'll see you at some point in the future. Thank you.